Who are you really? I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it, not rush past it, not give it the comfortable answer, not reach for the rehearsed version you offer the world when this question comes up. Who are you, really? Not your name, not your job, not your relationship status, not your nationality, your religion, your politics, your past, your wounds, or your achievements. Strip all of that away, and who's left? Because here is what I have come to understand, and what every genuine mystical and esoteric tradition in human history has pointed towards. Most people have absolutely no idea who they are. And the terrifying part, most people are not even aware that they don't know. They have been living inside a constructed identity for so long, built from borrowed beliefs, inherited fears, and social performances, that the construction has been mistaken for the self. Today, we're going to pull the mask off all the way, and we'll look at the architecture of the false self. From the moment that you arrived in this world, a process began, not maliciously, at least not always, but systemically, persistently, effectively. You were handed a name, then a role: son, daughter, sibling. Then a set of expectations: be good, be quiet, be successful, be appropriate. Then a culture, a religion, a social class, a nationality. Then a school system that told you which parts of your mind were valuable and which were not. Then a media landscape that told you what beauty looks like, what success feels like, and what a worthy life is made of. Layer by layer, piece by piece, an identity was constructed. And here is the critical thing that I need you to understand. You did not build this identity. It was built for you. And you, the real you, the soul underneath all of it, learned very early that the constructed version was what got the love, what got the approval, what kept you safe within the group. So you wore it, and then you wore it so long that you forgot that you were wearing it at all. The psychologist Donald Winnicott called this the false self, a protective structure built in response to the environment, designed to manage the world's expectations. Carl Jung called the public-facing mask the persona, a word that literally comes from the Latin word for the masks worn by actors in ancient theater. The entire ancient world understood something modern psychology is just now catching up to. Most human beings are performing a character, not living a life. So let's look at some of the masks that we wear. What are some of the masks? Let's name them because you will recognize them. First, there is the success mask, the identity built entirely around achievement, status, and productivity. This person cannot rest, cannot simply be. Their worth is entirely contingent on output. Strip away the career, the title, and the accomplishments, and they collapse because there was nothing, never was anything underneath holding them up. Then there is the people pleaser mask, the identity constructed entirely around managing other people's emotional states. This person has edited themselves so thoroughly for so long that they genuinely cannot tell what they want, what they feel, or what they believe, because they have never been allowed to find out. Their entire sense of self is a mirror of whoever they are standing in front of. Next is the spiritual mask, and I say this with love because this community is not immune. The identity built around the appearance of awakening rather than the actual experience of it. The right vocabulary, the right practices, the right aesthetic, right? A spirituality performed for a social belonging rather than lived in a genuine transformation. Next is the rebel mask, the identity defined entirely by opposition, rejecting everything that culture accepts, which sounds like freedom, but is actually just as externally defined as every other mask. You are still letting the outside world determine who you are, just in reverse. And then there is the most common mask of all, which is the survivor mask. The identity forged entirely in the fire of what happened to you, your trauma, your wounds, your story of what was done to you and what it made you. This is not dismissing the reality of pain. The pain was real. But when the wound becomes the identity, when you are so fused with your story of suffering that you cannot imagine yourself without it, the mask has now become your prison. You are the victim. None of these masks are you. They are responses to the world, adaptations, strategies, brilliant sometimes, necessary often, but they're not you. So why do we run from our true self? So if the true self is underneath all of this, why don't people simply just go there? Why does the stripping away feel so terrifying? Because we have been conditioned to fear it. Think about what the true self actually is. It is the version of you with no performance, no filter, no social management. It is the version that has genuine opinions that might upset people, genuine desires that might not fit the life that you have constructed, genuine gifts that might require you to dismantle everything that currently feels safe and start again. The true self does not negotiate with comfort. It does not ask permission from the crowd. It does not shrink to fit the room. And that is exactly why the systems that are around you, family systems, social systems, institutional systems, they have a vested interest in keeping you away from it. A person who knows who they truly are cannot be easily manipulated, right? They cannot be sold an identity through advertising. They cannot be kept compliant through shame. They can't be controlled through fear of social rejection because their sense of self no longer depends on the approval of the group. That makes sense, right? A truly self-knowing human being is ungovernable, and ungovernable people are dangerous to every system that requires your compliances to function. So the conditioning runs deep, right? From childhood, the message is consistent. Fitting in is safe, standing out is dangerous. Being like everyone else is lovable. Being fully yourself is risky. The world will tolerate the mask. It is far less comfortable with the face. And so most people make the unconscious calculation, usually before the age of 7, that the true self is not safe to show, and they bury it. Not forever. The soul is way too persistent for that, but deep enough that decades can pass before the knocking from the inside becomes too loud to ignore. So, is the whole world wearing masks? So, let me ask you something that might be uncomfortable. When was the last time you had a conversation, a real one, where both people dropped the performance entirely and spoke from the raw, unedited truth of their actual experience? For most people, the honest answer is rarely, if ever. We live in a world of almost universal performance. Social media has industrialized the mask, turning the curation of a false self into a daily practice, a metric, a competition. We do not just wear masks anymore. We optimize them. We A/B test them. We measure their effectiveness in likes and followers and the dopamine hit of external validation. And underneath all of it, underneath every carefully constructed profile, every rehearsed answer, every managed impression, there are billions of souls who are desperately, silently aching to be known, actually known. Not the version that they perform, but the one they truly are, their true self. This is the great loneliness of the modern world right now. Not the absence of people, we have never been more connected, but the absence of genuine contact, soul to soul, face to face, mask off, because you cannot truly connect with a mask. You can only connect with a person. And most people have not shown the world a person in a very long time. So let's try to find our way back. How do you find out who you actually are? After all the conditioning, all the construction, all the years of performing a version of yourself for the world's comfort, you start by getting still. Not productive stillness, not meditative performance, genuine, uncomfortable, radical stillness. Because the true self does not shout. It cannot compete with the noise of the constructed life. It speaks in the quiet, in the space between thoughts, in the moment just before sleep, in the sudden recognition that something you have been doing for years feels completely hollow. That hollowness, that's not depression. That is information. It is your soul's way of pointing at the gap between who you are performing and who you actually are. You begin to ask different questions now. Instead of what should I do with my life? Now it's what makes me feel most alive when nobody is watching. Not who do people need me to be, but rather what do I know to be true that I have never said out loud? You begin to notice what you have suppressed, the interests abandoned because they weren't practical, the truths silenced because they weren't welcome, the gifts buried because they didn't fit the identity that you were assigned. And then, the most important step of all, you begin to trust what you find there. Not perform it, not immediately share it, not rush to build a new identity out of it, because that is just replacing one mask with another mask, right? Simply trust it. Sit with it. Sit in the fire. Let the real version of you breathe for perhaps the very first time. The ancient traditions called this the path of self-knowledge. The oracle at Delphi did not say, know your goals or know your role, but rather it said, know thyself. 2 words, the most profound instruction ever given. So today, here is what I want to leave you with. You came into this world as something complete. You were already whole, something very whole, something that needed nothing added to it to be worthy of love, of belonging, of a place in this universe. And then the world got to work, right? And everything that has been added since, every layer, every label, every role, every mask, was not an expansion of who you are. It was a distance from it. The journey back is not about becoming something new. It is not about reinvention or rebranding or finding a better version of yourself. But rather, it's about subtraction, removing what was never you, releasing the verdict of the crowd, letting the performance rest, and in the silence that remains, meeting the one who has been waiting there patiently beneath all of it. That is who you really are. Ancient, sovereign, unbroken, no mask required. Stay conscious, stay sovereign, stay authentic, and keep creating. Thanks, guys. I love you all.